All right. Andrew's got the microphone turned on. I guess he expects me to get started here. It is certainly good to see everybody this morning. And isn't it wonderful that you didn't have to fight the flies and mosquitoes this morning? Man, that's the highlight of this kind of weather. The flies and mosquitoes go away. We're going to continue our study of Matthew, and we're in the final week of Jesus' life. A lot of things are going on, and Matthew, being the tax collector, he knew how to keep ledgers and records and things like that. He was required to, and his writing style is pretty much along that same line. Not necessarily things in chronological order until we get to the final week of Jesus' life, but he groups things in order by category. But now he's right down to the minute following his final days. And we're going to be in chapter 26 or 25. Yeah, chapter 25. And we're gonna finish up chapter 25 here in just a little bit, but he goes back to talents, and we saw what Jesus said in his teaching about the one who had received 10 talents, and so on and so forth. And he says, okay, here it is. What are you going to do with it? What do we do with what Jesus has given us? And one of the questions that I put out last week was, what particular talents do you have? Maybe it's not what someone else has, but why do you think not everybody's the same? Doesn't Jesus want us to work together? Yeah. Okay. And the question that I put out last week, okay, who speaks another language? And that's a big one. What are our problems in communicating? You can put that one right up at the top. If you're not speaking the same language, it gets really tough, right? Okay. And with those talents that Jesus has given us, and that word talent came from this parable, which back in those days meant a considerable sum of money, about 2 years' wages. And over time, that word talent has come to mean certain abilities or blessings that we as individuals may have. If God has given something to you, does He expect something in return? Does He expect more than what He invested in you? Yeah, He does. Okay, enough of looking back on that. We're going to start in verse 31. Now, remember back a few chapters, Jesus' long discourse on the destruction of Jerusalem and His coming again. Now, when the Son of Man comes in his glory and all the angels with him, he will sit on his throne in heavenly glory. Now, I didn't get very far right here before I got to stop. When the Son of Man comes, okay, how's he going to come? Okay, we're not going to miss it, are we? Nobody will miss it. It's going to be, the communication in Israel, when you have an entire nation, you can't just expect word of mouth to travel fast. What did they use? They used a trumpet. Okay, any history buffs in here? What did the army use to communicate in the middle of battle? Okay, they got these buglers here, and they knew how to play certain things. And each different melody on that bugle had a specific meaning, didn't it? Probably one we're most familiar with. You ever watch the old John Wayne movies? Charge. Okay. How many of you go to a high school football game? The bands, that if they don't know anything else, they know how to play charge. It's communication. And Jesus is going to come in his glory. It's not going to be, okay, he just snuck in here somewhere, but it's going to be something that all of us will recognize. He's coming in glory, and all the angels with him. It's going to be unmistakable. He will sit on his throne in heavenly glory. Now, we know how he's going to come, don't know when. But he just told us, when he comes in all his glory, he's going to sit on his throne. Now, all the nations will be gathered before him, and he will separate the people one from another as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. He will put the sheep on his right and the goats on his left. This is going to be it's something that if you follow what Jesus is describing here, this is going to be one of the grandest, one of the most beautiful things, or it's going to be on the other end of that spectrum. It's going to be the most awful thing, right? Okay, it's a separating. How many of you have wrangled kids and grandkids? Okay, and you look at the situation. What is one of the things that you have to do when the grandkids get out of control? I love your way of thinking, Steve. Give them candy. And I can tell you stories about that one. I'm not going to right now. But you grab them up and you say, okay, you sit over here and you sit over here until you settle down, right? Sure. Until you get so many of them, and then you just say, fight it out, and whoever comes out on top, okay. As long as there's no blood, you're all right, right? Feed them candy. Okay, there's so many different ways. I remember my mother. she had a daycare center. She would separate them. You sit over here, you sit over here, and when you're ready, then you can get back together. I mean, I've worked cattle. I've worked hogs. I have worked livestock of just about any kind. And one of the things that we had to do, we had to separate. Okay, we get them all in this pen. We separate the strays that come from someone else's pasture. We separate the cows from the calves. We separate the bulls from everything else. There's a separating process because each one has some different process they're going to go through, right? What about when Jesus comes again? There's going to be a separating because there's a different process, there's a different outcome for the groups. Okay, he will put the sheep on his right and the goats on his left. Now, the reason there's this separation, he's got a different message for each one. The king will say to those on his right, "Come, you who are blessed by my Father, take your inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world." Go to John chapter 14, and Jesus says, "I'm going to prepare a place for you. And if I'm going to go prepare this place, rest assured I'm going to come back and get you and take you with me." There is a place prepared. Okay, Jesus says to those on his right, "Take your inheritance, the kingdom that has been prepared for you." Now, this comes down to how they have lived their life. So, what is this telling you about this event? This is it. This is the final event. Okay. "For I was hungry, and you gave me something to drink, or something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. I needed clothes, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you looked after me. I was in prison, and you came to visit me." What are all of these things that Jesus has listed here? These are acts of what? Kindness. How do we live our lives? A lot of times, and I hate to say this, I have known Christians who would not extend a hand, who would not, bear with me, I've known congregations who said, "No, we're not doing any of that." I have known congregations, I remember a disaster that it happened and someone said, "Why don't we help out?" And I remember this congregation, one of the elders who said, "Well, we might need this money that we have." And I'm sitting here thinking, what are we going to need it for? This is what it's for. Okay, what about us individually? How many times do we have the opportunity to provide some act of kindness like Jesus has described here? Over the last few weeks, I have seen some of the greatest things that this congregation does. I remember walking in here, and that whole area back there in the foyer was you had to walk around all of the groceries that we had put together for the children's home. And I heard someone say it took 6 people like 2 or 3 hours just to load it up and take it out there. That's a lot. Okay, you look back there now. Things that we do, and not just for the children's home. This is something that goes on for anybody who needs something, anybody that we can help in some way. This is great. It makes me feel good to be a part of it. Now, not only that, Jesus is going to take all of this into consideration. He said, I was hungry. You gave me something to eat. Now, they're going to ask, the righteous will answer him, Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you? When did we give you something to drink? When did we give you clothes? When did we come and visit you? Now, think about that. Is Jesus here among us today? He's right here with us. Now, okay, when did we do these things? When is our opportunity? Jesus said, inasmuch as you have done it for one of these little ones, or one of these least in the kingdom, or anybody, when you had the opportunity, you did it. If you did it for them, who else did we do it for? For Jesus. You ever stopped and thought, wait a minute, I'm passing up an opportunity, or am I using the opportunity? This could be, I'll promise you, Jesus knows. Exactly. There's, opportunity is everywhere. Remember I told you about the young preacher who went to a small congregation and tried out, and he said, well, there's just no opportunity here. From what I see right here, Jesus is saying there is a whole lot more opportunity than you want to give an answer for at judgment. Opportunity is there. Do we have opportunity? Every day, all the time. If nothing else, and Jesus, he covered that. I was sick and you looked after me. I was in prison and you came to visit. You came to see me. You came because I mattered to you. Now, that's not a big thing, is it? How much is a kind word worth? How much is just being there for someone? How much is that worth? I mean, it does a lot, doesn't it? Not to mention, and Jesus mentioned, you fed me, you gave me something to drink, you put clothes on me. Now, stop and think. Now, I've seen some of the young people here this morning, and I know that they have coats. They just won't wear them. I mean, it's great to be young, isn't it? But You know, I've seen them. But what if they didn't have one? What would we do? There are people out there who don't have. What can we do? We can give them some clothes. I mean, we all, we understand now, it's cold out there. And Jesus said, if you did it for them, you did it for me. Whatever you did for the least of these brothers of mine, you did for me. Then he's going to say to those on the left, depart from me. Wait a minute. Depart. That means get out of here. He doesn't tell them where to go. He just says, you're not going to be here. So if we're not there, anywhere separated from Jesus is not where we want to be. We're not going to be partaking of the reward. Depart from me, you who are cursed, into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was hungry, and you gave me nothing to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me nothing to drink. It goes back to what those righteous did for him. He goes down that same list here and said, you didn't do anything. You did nothing. Inasmuch as you didn't do it for the least of my brothers, you didn't do it for me. Now, people might say, wait a minute, Jesus, if I'd known it was you, I would have done everything I could. That's what Jesus covered right here. He says, no, you did not do it for my brothers. You did not do it for anyone else. You didn't do it for me. And he says, depart. Now, let's consider the contrast here. Jesus said, I'm going to prepare a place for you in my Father's kingdom. And when I come back, I'm going to take you with me to be there. And there's several places in the scriptures where this place is described. It's amazingly beautiful. Now, and Jesus is telling to those who are cursed, what does he say? He said, depart from me. You're not going to the place that I've prepared for you, but you're going to go into the lake of eternal fire. Yes.
I think it's important to notice hell was prepared for the devil and his angels. I think it's important maybe to understand and know that.
It's a great contrast here. Hell was prepared for the devil and his angels, yes. Now, what about those that Jesus is talking to here? He said, you're going to go there. You're not welcome in the kingdom because you did not do these things. Now, how many of you have ever considered the 10 Commandments? How many of those are do not? And how many of those are do? Yeah, there's quite a few of them that say you have to do this. There are those, and we are most familiar with, no, don't do that. We've got the don't do's pretty much foremost in our mind. But what about the do? What about the ones where we have to take some action? What about the commands that we have to do something for someone else? You know, there's just as many of those commands that says you got to do something. Jesus, in his teaching, now, did he not say, did he not give us examples of his kindness? Stop and think for a minute. Didn't he feed 5,000 people? He healed people. Did he not raise some people from the dead? Did Jesus not do these things? Yes, he did. Now, don't we work to be like Jesus? Do we? I didn't say should we, I said do we? Because the should we part is answered right here. Do we? They will answer, Lord, when did we see you and not do these things? And he said in verse 45, I tell you the truth, whatever you did not do for one of the least of these, you did not do for me. Then they will go away to eternal punishment, but the righteous to eternal life. Okay, now, this is going to be probably, it ties right in with other teachings Jesus had in the other books of the gospel. But this is going to finish up Jesus' talk on when he comes again. When is it going to be? We don't know. And how's it going to happen? The trumpet's going to blast and everybody's going to know it. And it's time. Okay. Any questions so far on what we've covered? Anything I've missed? Yes. Mm-hmm. Some things it's not easy to do. You know, even though Jesus did these things, he never said it's going to be easy for you. Never said that. And there are going to be questions. Mm-hmm. Exactly. Some of the things that you know, the opportunity will present itself as something we may not like doing. Where would we have, you know, one consideration, where would we have to go in order to do this? You ever go into a rough neighborhood? You know, things may not be what you like. You may be a little bit afraid to go into that area. Exactly. Now, it's just like I said. Jesus did all these things. Jesus has expected us to do these things. Never once did he say, it's going to be easy. All you got to do is do it. Never said that, did he? Sometimes it's going to be difficult.
Well, I don't think he ever told anybody won't ask you to do something you're not capable of doing.
Right, we're capable of it. It may not be something that we really want to do. You know, okay, there's an area north of here, and I'll go ahead and get specific, Amarillo Boulevard. What's it known for? That area of town. Not the most desirable area, is it? But what kind of opportunity is there? I'm not saying go hang out on Amarillo Boulevard. I'm not saying that. But what about those people? Do they need? How hard is it going to be to walk up to one of the drug dealers up there and try and help him out? What's our reaction going to be? What if one of them came in here this morning? Would we go and shake their hand and make them feel welcome? Or would we scoot way over to the far end of the pew there and get away from them? I mean, watch the reaction of people. Inasmuch as you have done it for one of the least of my brothers, you've done it for me. And the same way goes with the word not in there. You didn't do it for them, you didn't do it for me. Okay, Jesus said it's got to be done. It's an opportunity for you. And we're judged on how we face that and what we do, right? Yes. Kindness is a very important thing in following Jesus. Okay, any more? I appreciate everyone bringing a point out. That's great. Yes, and you look back on any of Jesus' teachings. Did he say it was going to be easy? No. He said there are going to be people out there who want to throw you in prison. There's people out there who want to beat you up. There's people out there who want to kill you. And not only do they want to, but he said it will happen. Right? What about Jesus' disciples? Man, there's a history lesson right there. What happened to all of them? How many of them died of old age? How many? Any ideas?
Well, we know one.
Okay, one. John. And he was in prison. He was on that prison island of Patmos. Okay. Man, we've covered some time. That's okay. Now, we go into chapter 26, and Jesus is going to, he's going to really start preparing for his death. When Jesus had finished saying all these things, he said to his disciples, "As you know, the Passover is 2 days away, and the Son of Man will be handed over to be crucified." The Passover is 2 days away. So that tells me this is the final week of Jesus' life. It's Wednesday. Passover's 2 days away. Okay. And the Son of Man is going to be handed over to be crucified. Jesus never pulled the punch on telling them, I'm going to be killed. I'm going to be crucified. I'm going to die. That's why he goes to Jerusalem. He knew what was going to happen in Jerusalem. Then the chief priests and the elders of the people assembled in the palace of the high priest, whose name was Caiaphas, and they plotted to arrest Jesus in some sly way and kill him. But not during the feast, they said, or there may be a riot among the people. Okay, you can see the thinking of these chief priests and elders of the people. They want to kill Jesus. Okay, they come together in this palace and they start plotting this. They're saying, okay, we need to come up with some way to arrest him, and some, I love this word, sly way to kill him. These guys are trying to be sneaky, aren't they? Why? Okay, one thing you still have to remember that's very important among these people is politics. Murder was illegal no matter what, right? So they had to come up with some tricky way to get Jesus. Now, if you don't think politics is important, Rome is in control of the known world at this time. Everybody is under Roman rule. When Jesus, when his followers, when the Christians of the first century needed something to kind of bolster their strength and give them a little comfort, could you just come out and say Jesus is coming back and all of this is going to be overthrown and people are going to be punished? Could you just come out and say that? Why was Revelation not written in plain English? It's symbolic. Why was that? If you talk that as plain as what we're accustomed to, what do you think would have happened to those people? They would have hunted John down on that prison island, and they would have killed him in the worst way. They would have taken the Christians and ripped them to pieces. It would have been bloodshed to a great extent. So they're being tricky here because, and one of them said, we can't do it during the feast. We can't do that. Passover's got to get behind us, because if we do it on Passover, there may be a riot. Okay. Funny. And as we go along, we're going to see riot never happened, did it? Where did Jesus' disciples go when he was arrested? Man, they scattered to the four winds. Okay, but we need to arrest him, and in some tricky way that we can get away with it, we need to kill him. Were they planning on doing something that God hadn't already set in motion? No. Jesus went to Jerusalem for the specific purpose of being crucified. Okay, we'll look at the time. Oop, I'm out of time. Okay. Man, I've covered a little bit here, but in chapter 26, man, you see where this is starting to turn. You see where the story's going. And the things that Jesus has for us on the way to the cross, there's still a lot that he has here. So we're going to be looking at that. Okay. Any other questions or anything I've missed? I know I've missed something. I know I've got you so confused you don't know what to ask, right? Okay, let's pray. Our holy God and Father in heaven, we thank you so much for the day you have given us. Help us to rejoice in this day and to celebrate Jesus. Help us, Father, to come into worship with our hearts open and praise coming from our lips. Forgive us, Father, of our sins. These things we ask in the name of your Son. Amen.